If you know a thing or two about compliance, chances are you've heard about the travel rule, recommended by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF. In recent years, more and more countries have adopted the travel rule in their local regulations, with the most recent example being Japan, which plans to implement it for crypto by May 2023. Meanwhile, in the UK, the travel rule will come into effect September 1, 2023, through Regulation 5 of the Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Regulations. To make things simple for crypto companies, Sumsub prepared this video guide explaining all the details of the travel rule. What is the travel rule? The travel rule refers to the FATF's wire transfer requirements for virtual assets. It requires virtual asset service providers to obtain required and accurate originator information and required beneficiary information from their clients. In other words, crypto asset providers have to share personal information about their clients with other crypto companies. This process is necessary to minimize the chances of money laundering through crypto. The companies that fall under this regulation are officially known as Virtual Asset Service Providers, or simply VASPs. To comply, VASPs must collect the following information: the names of senders and recipients of virtual assets, the virtual asset wallet addresses of each, or a unique transaction reference number. Each jurisdiction has a minimum threshold that users can send in crypto without being subject to the travel rule. However, for transfers exceeding the threshold, VASPs must collect originator's name, originator's account number for the account used to process the transaction, originator's physical address, originator's national identity number or date and place of birth, beneficiary's name, beneficiary's account number. Who is considered a virtual asset service provider? VASP. At this point, you might be asking yourself what the exact definition of a VASP is. According to the FATF, a company is considered a VASP if it provides the following services: exchange between virtual assets and fiat currencies, exchange between one or more forms of virtual assets, transfer of virtual assets, safekeeping and/or administration of virtual assets or instruments enabling control over virtual assets, participation in and provision of financial services related to an issuer's offer and/or sale of a virtual asset. Under certain conditions, decentralized services and other P2P platforms may also be considered VASPs. The definition of VASP may also differ depending on the jurisdiction. How to comply with the travel rule? It's time to share the main requirements each VASP has to follow in order to comply with the travel rule. First of all, VASPs have to conduct due diligence of their counterparty before sharing travel rule-related data with them. Let's say Bob wants to send Bitcoin to Lisa. In this case, Bob is the originator, while Lisa is the recipient. As such, both Bob and Lisa's VASPs have to verify the accuracy of the originator's information on them before permitting the transaction. This means collecting their full names, checking if they're sanctioned or not, monitoring transactions, and retaining records. To comply with the travel rule, Bob's and Lisa's VASPs must then share the customer data with each other. Thus, to comply with travel rule, the VASPs have to implement an appropriate solution, allowing them to verify each party and share the required information. While the FATF doesn't recommend any particular solutions for travel rule compliance, VASPs should ensure that they can meet both FATF and local compliance obligations, including interoperability of systems, data protection and privacy, DPP issues, etc. To properly comply with the travel rule, companies should be able to verify and share data. Let's discuss each step in detail. Verifying data. Companies typically already have a client's personal data by the time a transaction occurs. This is thanks to the KYC process. However, not all KYC is equal. Some solutions go beyond the bare minimum to include comprehensive AML compliance, transaction monitoring, compliance data protection laws. So you verified the necessary personal data. Now you need to securely transfer it to another company. That's when data sharing comes into play. Sharing data. There is no single protocol or network for travel rule data transfers. A number of networks for encrypted data transfers already exist, including OpenVASP, Shift, and Trissa. What are some issues with the travel rule? The travel rule is still far from perfect, so let's discuss some of its problems. miscommunication between VASPs if one hasn't implemented the travel rule, interaction with unlicensed or unregistered foreign VASPs, different approaches to travel rule requirements, such as de minimis thresholds, data privacy issues, how unlicensed, unregistered, and non-hosted wallets are handled, etc. Determining the right technology to meet FATF and local compliance obligations. The travel rule aims to lift the veil of anonymity in crypto transactions in order to prevent money laundering. By following this rule, you can detect suspicious users and avoid fraud, all while keeping your reputation flawless and avoiding fines from regulators. If you like this video, check out Sumsub's YouTube channel for more interesting content. Also, check out the Sumsubber for deeper insights on anti-money laundering regulations.